Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the last 6 days you have had an ample time to, deliberate on the theme of this forum, which centers on promoting dialogue and smooth communication between different levels of the government. I also believed that in your deliberations you have arrived at actionable resolutions, which were just read here, Gabalishwaya. That will guide us and your nation as we move on with the implementation of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. This is important because we are at the phase where we must collectively work to overcome all the challenges we face in executing common policies. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the last 6 days, you extensively discussed how dialogue could be used to enhance policy coordination. You also discussed how sharing best practice, practices among states and administrative areas, the national government and development partners can be of great benefit. I hope the discussions you had in these areas gave you the opportunity to recognize the urgent need to transit from humanitarian programming mood we had during the war to development support. I'm fully aware of the importance of humanitarian programming in saving lives during the emergencies. However, we also know that humanitarian model focuses on hand-aid solutions. It also does not allow for capacity building for its beneficiaries. For these reasons, we need to work with our partners to find ways of scaling back humanitarian programming and devote more energies to development support. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, some of you may be wondering how this shift to development support will look like. At its basic level, all our development partners will be required to consult relevant government authorities when intending to initiate any program. This is essential because it will allow both the national and state administrative areas governments to harmonize their priorities with those of our partners. It will also help us to observe regional balance in our service delivery. Achieving harmony in this area will be a litmus test for genuine partnership. It will also foster meaningful collaboration at all levels between us and our development partners. The second aspect we need to consider on this issue is management of funds by government officials. This has been a sticky point between us and our partners. While work is still ongoing on public financial arrangement reforms, our partners can retain power over the disbursement of their programming money until that time when they are confident in our ability to account for their money. What they cannot do, as stated earlier, is design programs without consulting relevant government institutions. We will also object to any use of occasional setbacks in our path of peace consolidation to justify excluding government in any new programming area. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, another critical aspect you discussed in the last 6 days was the role of states and administrative areas in the implementation of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. This point cannot be emphasized more to you. Each and every one in this hall recognizes that war means breakdown of law and order. As governors and chief administrators, the bulk of your mandate centers on the restoration of law and order within your states and administrative areas. You all know without law and order at the lowest level in your respective states and administrative areas, all we have achieved since February 2020 will be reversed, and most of it has been reversed actually in these years that we have been fighting. Without law and order, we cannot hold credible elections, which is the end game of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. We will also not be able to repatriate our citizens who are still residing in refugee camps in neighboring countries. And this law and order, my dear brothers and sisters, is the only thing that we must maintain. If we intend, according to the agreement, the interim period ends with the elections. And if these elections are credibly held, then we would have moved away from all the problems that we have been experiencing in the insecurity areas. As I stated, in this very same hall on the 18th May 2021, while opening the NRA State Government Non-Oil Revenue Mobilization Conference. The concurrent taxing mandates between the national government and the state government should not be taken as a pretext for unilateral, uncoordinated, insufficient, or effective revenue collection policies, strategies, and practices at, at any level of our government. Such a pretext, if not checked, will result into an inequitable, non-transparent tax system with the excessive tax burden on our people. With a serious negative repercussions on investment, private sector growth, socio-economic development, and the stability of South Sudan as one nation. Let us all uphold the supremacy of our national laws over state laws as provided for in Schedule E to the transitional constitution of our republic in cases where there are any contradictions between our laws until such time that the desired amendments are done. Of course, I want to repeat that the 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 laws can clash between the states and the national government, or between the states and the counties, the local level. But this thing cannot be resolved now until when the constitution's amendments are made. On the matter pertaining to overlapping taxing powers between the national government and subnational governments, which has of recent resulted into a heated public debate, and of which I'm a very keen follower. Let me guide as follows. As a country governed by the rule of law, the Taxation Act 2009 should be respected. Should be respected, strictly adhered to, and the National Revenue Authority, which is mandated to administer it, should not be interfered with by any national, state, or county levels. We are not oblivious to the fact that the work you are undertaking at the states and administrative areas has massive resource implication. We also know at times this intensive resource need pushes some of you into revenue collection area, especially in areas assigned to National Revenue Authority. The goal of NRA, Central Collection of Non-Oil Revenue, is to allow the central government to have accurate forecast focus of revenue generated for budgeting purposes. Any attempt to decentralize non-oil revenue, non-oil revenue collection now will compromise this function and impedes ongoing reforms in our financial sector. To ensure timely delivery of your commitments at the states and administrative areas level, I am calling upon the Ministry of Finance and Planning to redouble its efforts in prioritizing the release of money allocated to states and administrative areas. Di au haja ita tusumitu. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me also comment on the challenges we have with respect to the implementation of Chapter 2 of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. There are three challenges impeding faster implementation of security arrangements. One is an external challenge, while the remaining two are internal challenges whose solutions are within our reach. The first challenge is the arms embargo that has limited our ability to procure arms for troops in the training camps. We have repeatedly informed the UN system about the negative impact this has on the implementation of Chapter 2 of the agreement, and all we have received in return are more conditions that do not recognize progress achieved so far. As things stand, we will have no option other than to graduate these forces with the sticks when the other two challenges I will speak about shortly are resolved. The second challenge comes from divergent views on command structure of the unified army. Conventionally, army formation starts at the lowest level, from a squad all the way to divisions and above. From this structural setup, it follows that the rank of commissioned officers must correspond with the levels of the army units they are deployed to lead. For our case, there are parties who have submitted a list composed of senior officers, starting from colonel upwards. If we accept such a submission, how will the leadership of unified army be expected to maintain its coherence, accountability, and control of personnel. I mean to say that you cannot assign a colonel to lead a platoon. All the people in this hall, I believe they have military background. And you know what is meant by a platoon. A platoon is 30 people minimum. 30 soldiers cannot be commanded by a colonel. They are commanded by a lieutenant, Mulazim Bedabura. So if we accept the lists that have been submitted to us by my colleagues in the other organized forces, then it will have no meaning. We as parties to the agreement should get this thing right by addressing issues of inflated ranks and unreasonable demands when discussing ways of constituting the unified army command structure. Another Nagulenu, our demands should not be the only leading things. لازم إنه نشوف القوة حجم بتاع القوة ونجيب الرتبة المناسب للقوة ده. We have talked about it in the presidential meetings. And at one time, my brother, Dr. Yek, asked for 7 days because we told him the forces that are now under training, most of them are officers without soldiers. And nobody will have the reason to demote your officers. Comrade Yek told me that he needed 7 days. And within 7 days, he would come back to me with everything perfectly done. I think Vice President Hussein also took that opportunity that they will do everything in his forces. I'm saying this because not the way of accusations to my colleagues. I'm not accusing them to anybody. We have to work to implement the agreement according to our commitment. I don't want anybody to take it in a way that we are accusing ourselves. The third and final challenge is the failure of the parties to reach consensus on percentage allocation of the new unified army among themselves. There are those saying that 45% of the unified army be allocated to other parties while the government takes the remaining 55%. To us, what is consistent with arrangements in the Revitalized Peace Agreement is the ratio of 60% to the government and the remaining 40% to other parties. This thing, if we were to agree on it, and as it was done in Khartoum, and recently those of Khartoum wrote a letter to me that I accepted the suggestion of those of Khartoum, 60% to the government and 40% to the other parties. We in the SPLM have accepted that. As you can see, these two internal challenges are not the making of one party. They emanate from the collective failure of the parties to see the bigger picture and reach timely agreement on these issues. To those who are pointing fingers, I would advise that you examine the validity of your demands. Look at the consequences of your demands on the timely implementation of Chapter 2 of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. Let us be reasonable and work to reach agreement on these two areas because they are critical for our country to exit from this cycle of violence. Back to the theme of law and order, I would like to emphasize that people need law and order to engage in productive activities. And my instruction to governors and chief administrators is please work within lawful means to apprehend those who disrupt peace and harmony within your states and administrative areas. Work collaboratively with your counterparts to ensure inter-state criminals do not destabilize border areas and impede our work on the implementation of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. I'm saying this because we don't need really to dwell on what takes us back to war. Let us proceed to do things as we see them reasonably resolved. Another important area people must guard against is the use of relief maps created by various relief agencies among states, administrative areas, and also among communities. The Independent Boundaries Commission, IBC, is one of such avenues. Given that land disputes are considered immediate triggers that can cause conflict, I'm appealing to those who are using relief maps to stake their claims on border areas, to desist from this exercise and wait for the determination of these boundaries by the relevant institutions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the quest for an inclusive peace and stability in our country remains our priority. In my recent speech to the joint session of Parliament, I announced the pause of talks with holdout groups. We took this decision because of the killing of innocent civilians on major roads and highways by elements from South Sudan Opposition Movement Alliance, SOMA. It was not because of our weakness. What compelled us to suspend the talks was that these killings took place after we have signed cessation of hostilities agreement and the declaration of principles with the SOMA. Now that they have refused to respect and comply with the agreement that we have made, I will, despite the challenges, I will order the resumption of the talks. Makai Mena is all. Yesterday, in Lasso area, there was such a battle. And those people who would want to insist on fighting, they ran away, leaving their colleagues on the ground. Father, I'm concerned about the people. When I signed this peace agreement, which we are always talking about, I signed it in this hall for the sake of the people of South Sudan, not because I was defeated by anybody. And for this, since we took this decision, many voices have appealed to us to reconsider our position and give the inclusive peace a chance. Yes, because of this, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, has been continuously praying for South Sudan and has been appealing to me to let the peace talks resume. I will now call on Sant'Egidio to prepare to begin the preparations for the resumption of the Rome peace talks with the whole out groups. I must say it again. I am today asking the community of Sant'Egidio to begin the preparation for the resumption of Rome peace talks with the whole out groups without any preconditions. I hope SOMA this time will adhere to cessation of hostilities agreement in order to give room to negotiations that will move the talks on without further interruption. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you may have read from the news, the security situation in our region is worsening. Specifically, our sisterly countries of Sudan and Ethiopia are facing challenges that are threatening to escalate further. In this situation, we have always advocated for dialogue among the parties as the only viable way of resolving these issues. In the interest of regional stability, I am registering South Sudan's willingness to support the African Union's mediation in Ethiopia with the goal of helping the warring parties to narrow their differences and possibly reach an amicable solution that will end these escalations permanently. يعني أنا كان حاولت كثير بإنه نتكلم مع authorities بتاع Ethiopia and even the TPLF, because these are people known to all of us. We have been with them for a very long time, and so I have been talking to them on phone to let them sit down and talk. But of course, that did not happen because كل زول عنده زول بتاعه وراه بليجوا لقدام. I am repeating this thing today because African Union has already assigned emissaries to talk to these people to stop fighting and to negotiate instead of fighting. Now in the Ethiopian conflict, the people in Tigray land are subjected to humanitarian disasters because the government has refused to allow relief to go to them, to the affected people. This is what we don't want because it was being used against us here in South Sudan, and we don't want to see it anywhere being used. So we are trying to send our messages to them. In Sudan also there was an incident 2 days ago in between Sudan and Ethiopia. Again, I tried to talk to General Burhan to stop what they might be thinking of. I did not have a chance to talk to Prime Minister Abiy, but I will still try to talk to him and talk to General Burhan so that they stop what the skirmishes that has happened in the area of Fashaga, so that then people just stay in peace. I think this is all I have to tell you. Finally, I would like to, well, before I end, I want to applaud General Rintwing Mabor and the people of Lake State. I want to thank General Rin for the great work he has done in lakes, that now you can move on the road, nobody can ambush you. That was not thinkable before. I wish that the other governors will have to do the same so that we retain peace in the whole of South Sudan. Go back empowered by the discussions and resolutions of this esteemed Fifth Governors Forum. Remain assured that we at national level will continue giving you unconditional support as you work to restore law and order at your respective states and administrative areas. Thank you all, and may God bless our country, the Republic of South Sudan. Now the forum is closed, and the governors can come out for group photos.